Growing up as Marcus Chin, the youngest of three brothers, meant growing up in someone else's shadow. Actually, two someone else's. My older brothers, David and Kevin, were what my parents called the successful ones. David ran the family manufacturing business my grandfather started. Kevin was a corporate lawyer. Both drove German luxury cars, lived in houses with circular driveways, and had wives who wore jewelry that required insurance riders. Then there was me. The one who never quite figured it out. I was 33 years old, worked as a freelance software developer, drove a 10-year-old Honda, and lived in a modest 2-bedroom condo in a neighborhood my mother described as up and coming, which meant not good enough. I dressed in jeans and hoodies, avoided fancy restaurants, and spent my weekends hiking or reading instead of networking at country clubs. My family had decided long ago that I was the poor one, the struggling one, the brother who needed pity and occasional helpful advice about getting a real career. What they didn't know was that I was worth $8.4 million. More importantly, what they really didn't know was that I owned 40% of the family business that kept David's lifestyle afloat. It started 11 years ago when I was 22 and fresh out of college with a computer science degree. The family business, Chin Manufacturing Industrial Parts Supplier, was on the verge of bankruptcy. My grandfather had died 2 years earlier, my father had retired early due to health issues, and David, who'd taken over at 28, was drowning. "We need capital," David told me over dinner one night. He looked exhausted, 10 years older than his 30 years. "The bank won't extend our line of credit. We're 3 months from shutting down. Dad's entire retirement fund is tied up in this company. If we go under, Mom and Dad lose everything." I'd been working freelance for a year by then, building websites and apps for small businesses. I'd also been doing something my family didn't know about: day trading and making cryptocurrency investments. I'd turned my $15,000 in college savings into $340,000 through careful, calculated risks and a lot of sleepless nights studying market patterns. "How much do you need?" I asked. $250,000 minimum. "But Marcus, I'm not asking you for money. I know you're just getting started. I'm just venting." I should have let it go. I should have said something sympathetic and moved on. Instead I said, "What if I invested?" David laughed. Not meanly but genuinely amused. "Mark, you're doing websites for dentists. That's great, but I have $340,000 in liquid assets. I'll give you $250,000 in exchange for equity." The laughter died. "You have what?" $340,000. Cryptocurrency and stock investments. I can have $250,000 wired by Monday." He stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "How?" "I'm good with numbers and patterns. It's basically what I do all day." I shrugged. "I'll invest $250,000. In exchange, I want 40% equity, a seat on the board, and final approval on any major business decisions." 40%? Mark, that's exactly what that much capital is worth when the company is 3 months from bankruptcy. The bank would charge you triple that in fees and interest if they'd even give you the loan, which they won't. David was quiet for a long time. "I need to talk to Dad." 3 days later, I met with David and my father at a lawyer's office. My father looked at me the entire time like he didn't recognize me. "Marcus," he said slowly, "where did you get $300,000? "I earned it. Trading, investments, freelance work." "You're 22. "Yes. And you're offering to save the family business." "I'm offering to invest in a company I believe has potential if managed correctly." My father's face did something complicated. Pride, confusion, resentment that his youngest son, the one he'd written off, had more capital than his oldest son's company. We signed the papers. I wired $250,000. And I became a 40% owner of Chin Manufacturing, though we agreed to keep it quiet. "No need to complicate family dynamics," my father said, which I understood to mean, no need to embarrass David. I was fine with that. I didn't need credit. I needed ROI. Over the next 11 years, I turned that investment into something extraordinary. I restructured Chin Manufacturing's supply chain, cutting costs by 34%. I built them a proprietary inventory management system that I licensed back to them for $1 per year. I introduced them to 3 major clients through my growing network in tech. I pushed them to diversify their product line and expand into sustainable manufacturing, which became their most profitable division. The company went from nearly bankrupt to generating $12 million in annual revenue. My 40% stake was now worth $4.8 million on paper, but more in practical terms because I also took quarterly dividend payments that totaled another $2.1 million over the years. I reinvested most of those dividends into other ventures. A small stake in a startup that got acquired by Google. Real estate investment trust. Index funds. More cryptocurrency before the boom. By age 33, my net worth was $8.4 million. I still drove my Honda. Still lived in my condo. Still wore hoodies. Because I didn't need to prove anything to anyone. Except my family had never stopped seeing me as the poor one. The family reunion happened every 2 years at my parents' house in the suburbs. My mother spent months planning it. Catered food, professional photos, matching family t-shirts that I conveniently forgot to wear. This year's reunion had 43 people. Parents, brothers and their families, aunts, uncles, cousins, even some second cousins I'd met maybe twice. I arrived in my Honda, wearing jeans and a button-down shirt I'd bought at Target. My brother David pulled up in his new BMW 7 Series. Kevin arrived in a Mercedes SUV that cost more than most people's houses. Marcus. My mother hugged me, then immediately frowned at my outfit. Sweetheart, didn't you get the email about business casual? This is business casual. Well, you look nice anyway. The tone said I didn't, but she was being polite. My father clapped me on the shoulder. Good to see you, son. How's the computer thing going? Good. Busy. Still doing the freelance work? Among other things. That's good, that's good. Flexible hours, right? That's important when you're still building up savings. I was about to respond when David walked over with his wife, Jennifer, who was wearing what I recognized as a Chanel suit. I knew because I'd helped finance the company expansion that gave David the bonus he'd probably used to buy it. Mark. David hugged me. Glad you could make it. How's business? Solid. Yours? Best quarter yet. We just landed a contract with Morrison Industrial. $2.3 million over 3 years. That's great. I'd introduced him to Morrison's CEO at a tech conference. He didn't know that. Kevin joined us, expensive watch glinting. Little brother. Still coding away in your cave. Something like that. You should come to my firm's summer mixer. We always need good tech guys for contract work. Pays pretty well. Probably better than what you're making now. I'm good, but thanks. Just looking out for you, man. He patted my shoulder like I was a kid. Dinner was served on the back patio. Catered barbecue, craft beer, artisan desserts. Everyone gathered around the long tables my parents had rented. The conversation naturally gravitated to success stories. David talked about the Morrison contract. Kevin discussed a case he'd won that made the local news. My cousin Brandon bragged about his real estate development company. My uncle Tom showed off photos of his new lake house. I ate my brisket and said nothing. And Marcus, my Aunt Linda said with that careful, pitying tone, how are things with you? Still doing the website design. Software development, but yes. That's wonderful. So important to have something steady. Especially in this economy. Flexibility is key when you're building up savings, my mother added, repeating my father's earlier comment like it was rehearsed. My cousin Brandon leaned forward. You know, Mark, if you ever want to get into real estate, I could show you the ropes. Start small, maybe a rental property. Build some real wealth. I appreciate that. Because that freelance stuff, it's fine for now, but long-term you need assets. Equity. You know. I knew. I had $8.4 million in assets. But I just nodded. Kevin jumped in. Mark's doing fine. Not everyone needs to be a millionaire. Some people are just more comfortable with a simpler lifestyle. Exactly, Jennifer added. Nothing wrong with being frugal. Mark's always been practical. The table murmured agreement. Poor Mark is so practical. So simple. So limited. Then my father stood up, wine glass in hand. I want to make a toast, he announced. To family. And to success. I'm so proud of my sons. David's taken our family business to heights I never imagined. Kevin's made partner at one of the city's top law firms. And Marcus. He paused, looking at me with that complicated expression I'd learned to recognize. Marcus is finding his path. Not everyone needs the spotlight. Some people are just happy doing their own thing. Here's the poor one now, my father added with a chuckle, gesturing at me. Always struggling along in his own way. My mother laughed. Oh, Robert. Don't tease. But yes, Marcus has always been content with less. Everyone raised their glasses. To success. To family. To David and Kevin. And to poor Marcus, the struggling one, the simple one, the one who'd never quite figured it out. I raised my glass and drank. Then I pulled out my phone and walked into the house, heading for my father's study. I sat at his desk and opened my email. Email protected. Subject. Immediate action required. Message. Sarah, please initiate withdrawal of all my investments from Chin Manufacturing effective immediately. Execute the buyback clause in the original contract. They have 90 days to purchase my 40% stake at current market valuation or face forced liquidation proceedings. Send all documentation to the family by end of business Monday. Also pull my capital from the Henderson Real Estate Development Trust, Brandon's company. File the appropriate withdrawal notices. Marcus. I hit send. Then I opened my financial management app and began the process of withdrawing my angel investments from 3 other family-adjacent ventures. My cousin's restaurant. My uncle's consulting firm. My brother Kevin's sure thing tech startup that I'd funded with $200,000 2 years ago. I'd been the silent money behind half the success stories being celebrated on that patio. Not anymore. I walked back outside just as dessert was being served. My phone buzzed. Sarah, my accountant, responding, confirming all withdrawal instructions received. Chin Manufacturing notification will be sent Monday 9 a.m. Current market valuation of your 40% stake. $4.8 million. They'll have 90 days to secure funding. Expect this to be complicated. Are you sure? I typed back, completely sure. I stayed another hour, smiling politely and accepting everyone's well-meaning advice about my struggling career. Then I drove home to my modest condo, poured myself a glass of good whiskey, the $300 bottle I kept hidden in the back of my cabinet, and waited. Monday morning would be interesting. The first call came at 9:47 a.m. Monday morning. David. I let it go to voicemail. He called again immediately. Again voicemail. Text message. Mark, call me right now. Another text. What the fuck did you do? Another. My lawyer just got a notice that you're withdrawing from the company? You're 40%? I was in a coffee shop working on code for a client. I calmly finished my function, tested it, committed it to the repository and then called David back. What the hell, Marcus? Good morning, David. Don't good morning me. What is this about withdrawing your investment? What investment? What are you talking about? I own 40% of Chin Manufacturing. Per the investment agreement signed 11 years ago, I have the right to withdraw my capital with 90 days notice. I'm exercising that right. Silence. Then, you own what? 40%. I invested $250,000 to save the company. Did you forget? I thought that was a loan. Or maybe like a small piece. 40%. It's all in the documentation. The same documentation your lawyer apparently just received. Marcus, you can't just withdraw 40% of the company. Do you understand what that would do to us? I understand that per the market valuation you owe me $4.8 million. You have 90 days to secure funding or we move to liquidation. 4.8. Marcus, we don't have that kind of liquid capital. That sounds like a you problem. This is the family business. It's also my investment. An investment in a company whose leadership called me the poor one, and always struggling, at a family reunion in front of 43 people. Another silence. Is that what this is about? Dad was joking. Was he? Because it didn't sound like a joke. Sounded like the same thing I've heard for 11 years. How I'm just doing my computer thing. How I'm comfortable with less. How I need flexibility, because I'm still building up savings. Mark, come on. Nobody meant. I've been the primary capital investor in this company for over a decade, David. I restructured your supply chain. I built your inventory system. I introduced you to Morrison Industrial. You know, that $2.3 million contract you were bragging about Saturday? That was my introduction. My network. My work. I could hear him breathing on the other end. And in return, I continued, I get to be poor Marcus at family reunions. The struggling one. The one who needs career advice from people whose careers I'm literally funding. I didn't know you felt. You didn't know because you never asked. None of you did. You just decided who I was and never questioned it. What do you want? I want my investment back. With returns. In 90 days. That'll tank the company. Then maybe you should have thought about that before treating your majority stakeholder like a charity case. I hung up. The fallout was immediate and spectacular. My father called within 20 minutes. Marcus, what is this nonsense about withdrawing from the company? It's not nonsense. It's business. You can't just destroy the family business because your feelings are hurt. I'm not destroying anything. I'm exercising my contractual rights as an investor. Over a joke at a barbecue? Over 11 years of being treated like the family failure while I'm the reason the company survived. But sure, let's call it a joke. You're being childish. I'm being a businessman. You taught me that, remember? Don't let emotions cloud your judgment. That's not what Marcus, please. Think about your mother. This will devastate her. Then maybe you shouldn't have called me poor in front of the entire family. I hung up. Kevin called next. Mark, man, what are you doing? David's freaking out. Withdrawing my investment. What investment? You really don't know? I almost laughed. Kevin, I own 40% of Chin Manufacturing. I'm also the angel investor who gave you $200,000 for your tech startup. And I'm pulling that too. You're, what? Check your business email. You'll see the withdrawal notice. Marcus, that $200,000 is our operating capital. If you pull it now, we'll have to shut down. Sounds like you should have run a better company. Or at least not called me comfortable with a simpler lifestyle, when I'm the one funding your entrepreneurial dreams. That's not what I meant. Isn't it? You literally told Aunt Linda that not everyone needs to be a millionaire. Kevin, I'm worth $8.4 million. I've been a millionaire since I was 28. Silence. You're serious. Completely. Why didn't you ever say anything? Why did you assume I had nothing? He had no answer to that. By Tuesday afternoon, the family group chat was in meltdown. My mother, Marcus, please call me. Your father is beside himself. My Uncle Tom, what's this about Marcus pulling investments? What investments? My cousin Brandon, wait, Marcus invested in my real estate trust? Since when? David, since 3 years ago. $300,000. And yes, he's withdrawing that too. Brandon, what? My Aunt Linda, I'm so confused. How does Marcus have this kind of money? Kevin, apparently he's been quietly funding half the family's businesses for years. While we all thought he was struggling. My mother, that can't be right. Marcus lives in that little condo. Kevin, Mom, he's worth over $8 million. The chat went silent for a full minute. Then my father, this is a private family matter. We'll discuss it in person. Marcus, I expect you at the house Thursday evening. I muted the group chat. Wednesday brought my favorite call. Jennifer, David's wife. Marcus, hi. This is Jennifer. We need to talk. I don't think we do. Please. Just hear me out. This withdrawal is going to ruin us. David's been up for 3 nights trying to figure out how to come up with almost $5 million. The bank won't loan us that much. We might have to sell the house. That's unfortunate. Marcus, please. I know we haven't always been close. But this affects your niece and nephew too. They're in private school. David's promised them a trip to Disney next month. If we have to liquidate. Jennifer, I've been funding David's lifestyle for 11 years. I'm not responsible for the fact that he spent his money on BMWs and Chanel suits instead of building capital reserves. That's not fair. What's not fair is working my ass off, building multiple successful ventures, and having my family treat me like I'm one bad month away from homelessness. What's not fair is being called the poor one by people who owe their entire lifestyle to my money. We didn't know. And that's the problem. You never asked. None of you did. You just assumed. If we had known. If you had known what? You would have been nicer? You would have respected me? Sorry, Jennifer, but respect that only comes after you find out someone has money isn't respect. It's ass-kissing. She was quiet for a moment. So this is just revenge? No. This is me refusing to fund people who fundamentally disrespect me. There's a difference. Thursday evening I drove to my parents' house. My brothers were already there, both looking like they'd aged 5 years in 4 days. My father sat at the head of the dining room table like a judge. My mother wrung her hands. David looked exhausted. Kevin looked angry. "Sit," my father said. I sat. "Explain yourself." I exercised my right to withdraw my investments from family ventures. What's to explain? Why now? After all these years. Because after all these years, I'm tired of being treated like the family charity case when I'm the one keeping half of you afloat. David leaned forward. "Mark, I had no idea you felt this way. If I'd known, you would have what? Treated me differently? Respected my contributions? Why does it take a crisis for you to see me as a person instead of a punchline?" "That's not fair," my mother said. "We love you. You love poor Marcus. Struggling Marcus. Simple Marcus who's content with less. But the Marcus who's actually successful? Who's actually wealthy? You don't even know him because you never bothered to look." "We asked about your work," my mother protested. "You asked how my computer thing was going. You asked if I was building up savings. You offered me career advice and job leads like I was barely making rent. Mom, I'm worth more than David and Kevin combined." My father's face reddened. "If you're so successful, why do you dress like a college student? Why do you drive that junker? Why do you live in that tiny condo?" "Because I don't need to prove anything to anyone. Because I'm comfortable. Because I'd rather invest my money than waste it on status symbols. But apparently that means I'm poor in your eyes." "You intentionally misled us," Kevin said. I laughed. "I misled you? How? By not driving a Mercedes? By not bragging at family reunions? You all just assumed I was struggling because I didn't perform wealth the way you think it should be performed. So this is about ego," my father said. "No. This is about respect. About being tired of silent investments and silent contributions while you all take credit and pat me on the head like I'm the family failure." David rubbed his face. "Hey, you're right. We took you for granted. We made assumptions. We were wrong. I'm sorry. Genuinely sorry. But Marcus, if you pull this investment, it doesn't just hurt me. It hurts our employees. It hurts the company grandfather built. It hurts Mom and Dad's legacy. Don't you dare," I said quietly. "Don't you dare put this on me. I saved this company 11 years ago. I've saved it every year since. I've made you all successful and I've asked for nothing but basic human respect. And I couldn't even get that." The room was silent. "So what do you want?" Kevin asked. "Public apology? Recognition? What?" "I want you to come up with $4.8 million in 90 days. That's what I want." "We can't," David said. "Not without selling everything." "Then sell." My mother made a small sound. "Marcus, please. There has to be another way." I looked at her. At all of them. My father who'd toasted my brothers and called me poor. My brothers who'd offered me job leads and career advice. My sister-in-law who'd looked at my Target shirt with barely concealed pity. And I felt something shift. I was tired. Tired of being angry. Tired of proving points. Tired of family dynamics that required a nuclear option to shift. But I also wasn't going to back down. "There is another way," I said slowly. Everyone leaned forward. "I'll restructure the deal. I'll give you 5 years to buy me out instead of 90 days. The valuation increases to $6.2 million to account for the extended timeline and my lost investment opportunities. You'll pay me quarterly installments. And if you miss even one payment, the whole thing comes due immediately." David exhaled. That's workable. We can do that." "I'm not finished. In exchange, I want several things. First, public acknowledgement of my ownership stake. No more secret investor. If you're going to take credit for the company's success, I want my contribution known." David nodded. "Second, I want a formal seat on the board with full voting rights and veto power over major decisions. I'm not just capital anymore. I'm leadership." "Done." "Third, and this is non-negotiable, I want respect. No more jokes about poor Marcus. No more career advice. No more pitying looks at my car or my clothes. You don't get to comment on my lifestyle choices. Ever." My father opened his mouth. "Ever," I repeated, looking at him. "Or the deal's off and we go back to the 90-day buyout." He closed his mouth. And finally, I want genuine relationships with my family. Not the performance we've been doing. If you can't do that, if you can't see me as an equal instead of a project, then just pay me out and we'll keep it purely financial. The room was quiet. My mother spoke first, her voice small. I had no idea you felt so invisible. I know, Mom. That's the problem. I'm sorry. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. You're right. We made you invisible because it was easier than seeing how wrong we were. David stood up and walked around the table. He held out his hand. Partners, he asked. Real partners. I looked at his hand for a long moment. Then I stood and shook it. Partners. The next family reunion was different. I still drove my Honda. Still wore jeans. Still lived in my modest condo. But when I arrived, David introduced me to his business associates as Marcus Chin, my business partner and the financial genius behind our success. When my cousin asked about my work, Kevin jumped in with, Mark's a software developer and investor. He's built an incredible portfolio. You should hear some of his strategies. When dinner conversation turned to success stories, my father raised his glass and said, to my sons. All three of them. David's leadership, Kevin's legal mind and Marcus's financial brilliance. Together they're unstoppable. Everyone raised their glasses. To success. To family. To all of us. I caught my father's eye. He nodded. It wasn't perfect. Years of dynamics don't change overnight. But it was a start. 6 months later I was in my office. I'd finally rented a proper office space. When Sarah, my accountant, called. Marcus, the quarterly payment from Chin Manufacturing just came through. Right on time. Also, I ran your portfolio numbers. You crossed $10 million in net worth last month. I smiled. Thanks, Sarah. You celebrating? Maybe I'll buy a new hoodie. She laughed. You're impossible. After we hung up, I looked around my office. Still modest by most standards. But it was mine. Built with my work, my intelligence, my risk-taking. My phone buzzed. David. Hey Mark, we just got the Morrison renewal. Another 3 years, $3.8 million. Your introduction keeps giving. Dinner this weekend to celebrate? My treat. And I actually mean that this time. I smiled. Sounds good. And Mark. Thanks. For everything. For saving the company. For sticking with us even when we were idiots. For giving us a second chance. That's what family does. Yeah. It is. A year after the confrontation, my mother pulled me aside at Christmas. Marcus, I need to tell you something. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. I want you to know that I'm proud of you. Not because of your money or your investments. Because of who you are. You're kind and patient and brilliant, and I'm sorry it took almost losing you to see it clearly. My throat tightened. Thanks, Mom. Also, I told the book club about your success. I couldn't help it. Linda was going on about her son's promotion and I just said, that's nice, but my son Marcus is worth $10 million and saved our family business. You should have seen her face. I laughed. Mom. What? I'm proud of you. I'm allowed to brag about my son. You can brag. Just maybe don't lead with my net worth. No promises. He hugged me. I love you, sweetheart. All of you. The part that's successful and the part that wears Target shirts. I love you too, Mom. They say money can't buy happiness, and that's true. But what money can buy is options. Freedom. The ability to walk away from people who don't value you. The power to demand respect instead of begging for it. I'm Marcus Chin. I'm 34 years old. I'm worth $10.3 million. I drive a Honda. I live in a modest condo. I wear hoodies. And I'm not the poor one. I never was. I was just the only one smart enough to understand that real wealth isn't about the car you drive or the clothes you wear. It's about the choices you can make when people finally see you clearly. And the grace you show when you decide to give them another chance.